War in the Middle East. You know, it's a headline that almost always means one thing for the rest of us. Oil prices are about to go way up. And sure enough, as things between Iran and Israel got worse, that's exactly what happened. But then, something totally unexpected happened. So, let's get into it and figure out what was behind this wild roller coaster ride for oil prices.
So just last night, the market was in an absolute panic. Brent crude, that's the big global benchmark for oil, it shot up to almost $120 a barrel. I mean, traders were really bracing for the worst, thinking a full-blown regional war was about to choke off the world's entire oil supply.
And then you wake up this morning, and the price has plummeted, a nearly $30 drop. That is the kind of massive swing you almost never see unless there's a huge financial crisis. Just wow.
So what on earth happened, right? How do you go from total apocalypse mode to a huge sigh of relief overnight? Well, to get that answer, we can't just stare at the stock tickers. We've got to look at what was happening on the battlefield and, just as importantly, in the halls of power. Okay, so first, let's talk about why traders were so spooked in the first place. You have to understand what was actually happening on the ground. This wasn't just a small skirmish. Things were getting serious and fast. The real spark for all that market panic was this news right here. Reports started flooding in that Israel had launched what was being called an extensive second wave of airstrikes. Now, this was not some limited tit-for-tat kind of thing. No, this was a major strategic operation.
And just look at the targets. They really tell you the whole story. Israel wasn't just, hitting back randomly. They were aiming right for the heart of Iran's military. We're talking command centers for the powerful Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, plus major missile factories and bases. These were strikes designed to seriously damage Iran's ability to fight back.
And it didn't stop there. The conflict wasn't contained to just Iran and Israel. As Iran started to retaliate, the fire began to spread, pulling in other countries in the region. And that is when the alarm bells really started going off around the world.
Suddenly, you had Iranian drones and missiles being reported over Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE. But the big one, the one that really got everyone's attention, was when a missile crossed into Turkish airspace and had to be shot down by NATO. Now, all of a sudden, this conflict was right on NATO's doorstep.
Okay, so with the military situation spiraling, all eyes turned to the leaders who were making the big calls. Their words were either going to pour gasoline on the fire or start to put it out.
And what you saw were two totally different messages. In Iran, the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, was doubling down, vowing to keep fighting. But on the other side of the world, in Washington, President Trump sent a completely opposite signal, basically saying, hey, this thing is going to wrap up soon.
At the same time, though, President Trump drew a very clear, very bold red line. The Strait of Hormuz, that's the world's most critical choke point for oil. The whole reason the market was panicking was the fear that Iran would shut it down. And right here, the U.S. issued this massive warning. It was this interesting mix of calming words and a very powerful threat.
All right, so now that we have all that context, the military moves and the political chess game, let's go back to our big question and follow the money. How did all of this cause that absolutely insane swing in oil prices? So, at 10 p.m. Korean time, fear was at its absolute maximum. You had the news of the massive Israeli strikes, Iran's threats, and the conflict spreading. Traders were pretty much convinced the Strait of Hormuz was about to be closed for business. But fast forward just 8 hours. It's 6 a.m., and the whole story flips. The panic starts to fade, and this, cautious optimism starts to creep in. And it was all because of a few words spoken thousands of miles away.
This timeline really lays it all out. At 10 p.m., that fear of a Hormuz blockade sends the price soaring to $119.50. Then, things start to calm down. At 2 a.m., word gets out that the G7 is ready to release their strategic oil reserves, and the price drops to $110. But the real game changer was at 6 a.m. President Trump's "war will be over soon" statement sends the price crashing below $100. And finally, by 10 a.m., news that the U.S. Navy would actually escort tankers sealed the deal, easing the last of the supply fears and letting the price settle around $92.
So really, it wasn't just one thing. It was this rapid-fire series of 3 key moves that pulled the market back from the edge. First, you had that powerful signal from the White House that this was ending. Second, a coordinated promise from the world's biggest economies to keep the oil supply stable. And third, a real, concrete military plan to protect the most important shipping lane on the planet. So the markets might be calm for now. But the situation over there is still incredibly tense, and that leaves us with the big, multi-trillion-dollar question. Was the president's prediction that the war would be over soon based on reality? Was it a self-fulfilling prophecy, or was it just wishful thinking? The answer to that is going to decide where oil prices and maybe the world go from here.